We just connected, so let's start the show. And please do ask questions throughout. Welcome to the Nonprofit Report, your weekly update on nonprofit organizations, issues, and leaders. I'm your host, Mark Oppenheim. Today we will talk about about empowering girls through the Girl Scouts with special guests, Meridith Maskara, CEO of Girl Scouts of Greater New York, Lidia Soto-Harmon, CEO of Girl Scouts of the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., and Marina Park, CEO of the Girl Scouts in Northern California. And a reminder to Zoom attendees that we'll take 3 snap polls during the show. We'll announce results, and questions submitted through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen will be included in our discussion. So thank you all for joining us. This is wonderful. I get to speak with Girl Scout leaders. Half the people in the world, right? Empowering girls. Let's talk about Girl Scouts, and let's talk about how that experience can be so important to an empowered life going forward. Can we start off with you, Meridith, and just talk about what the Girl Scouts means to you and to the people that you serve?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here, and of course to be surrounded by my sister CEOs, Lidia and Marina. We've been separated. Normally during a year we would be face to face together, but we are all staying well connected and lifting up each other's best practices, keeping the girls at the center of our focus. So I am a 3rd generation Girl Scout, a Gold Award Girl Scout myself. I am the mother of 5 current Girl Scouts and the proud CEO of Girl Scouts of Greater New York. So needless to say, Girl Scouting has been a consistent through line in my life as a product of the program. And, you know, being CEO of Girl Scouts of Greater New York, we have a vision here, which is to create a New York City in which every girl feels empowered to lead in her community, the workplace, and the world. And our focus in our programs in New York City is really about going beyond the periphery to make sure that we are reaching every girl in every community so that they feel welcome to be part of the program, and that we create an equitable space for them to start on their leadership journey.
So, to me, it's so interesting to watch these debates unfold about people of different genders and their identity and their empowerment. And this is a movement that has been around for a really long time. And it really is all about empowerment, isn't it, Lidia?
Yes, it absolutely is all about empowerment. And, during these COVID times, it has been, I would say, my colleagues will agree, it's been very challenging because, we have, we've had to find new ways to reach the girls that need our help. And some of it has created some mental health challenges for young people. We know that, perspective comes with age. And when you're young, and this is, and having to be sort of with your parents for a whole year in your house, that could be really hard. But also just all the, I call them the rites of passage that young people are missing, whether it's a bridging ceremony for a Girl Scout event or a graduation, whether it's from middle school or high school, or, just even the prospect of going off to college, when that means that you are actually going up to your bedroom and sitting in your childhood bed doing, college level work. So I think Girl Scouts has really tried to find ways that we can create resiliency and normalcy and really get girls outside. I mean, that's I know that all 3 of us have worked really hard to try to find ways that we can provide opportunities for girls to be girls and to create relationships and friendships, because, yes, we are all about leadership, but we know that in life, what carries us into the future is those meaningful relationships and those bonds that we create that then give us a sounding board when things are tough or when we don't know what is the right decision to make. So hopefully, I'm just so grateful to so many troop leaders who have really sort of stepped up during this difficult time to provide that for girls, and for all the Girl Scout councils across the country that have, through incredible CEO leaders like my colleagues, have also worked really hard to provide those opportunities for girls.
Why is it important, Marina, that girls have a space that is reserved for them? What could you just sort of observe some of the differences? We've gone through a society these different phases, sometimes where we think that there's a real distinction between male and female genders and other genders, and sometimes where we think that, well, there's really no difference. Could you talk a little bit about that whole topic and about this sort of safe space for girls and also the enriching space for girls? Not just that it's safe, but it's also in many respects, it allows for a certain expression and a certain exploration by girls.
Yeah. We know from many years of talking with parents and girls that what they want is to get outdoors with outdoor skills. And that's probably something that, both boys and girls want. They want civic engagement. They want to be empowered to make a difference in their communities. And the third priority is a safe space for girls. And by safe space, of course, physical safety is really important, but also emotional safety. And I think I get the best answers when I ask girls that question. And particularly high school girls who've come through the program and they are participating in a lot of co-ed debate team and other activities. And so what is it about Girl Scouts that helps them? And I loved something one of the young women said who actually served on our board. She said, I'm afraid of heights. And when I jumped off the zip line at camp and all of my sister Girl Scouts were cheering me on, I figured out that I'm braver than I know that I am, especially when I have people supporting me. And she said that courage I discovered in myself has helped me be successful in all of the other things that I'm doing in my life. She said, I wouldn't have had the courage to do that if I was in a co-ed environment, because I would have been worried about people seeing me be afraid. My fellow, I wouldn't have had the same comfort level, and I would have had a greater fear of failure. And so that's a lot of what we hear from girls, is that they discover their confidence and their courage by being in that all-girls space, by having that safe space, and then they take that out into the world. We know it's a co-ed world, but it gives them that kernel of courage, and I think that's just super important. And that's what we hear over and over again from our girls.
Can we talk a little bit about social imprinting and imprinting our legacy as older folks, really imprinting
Speak for yourself. I'm not older, Mark.
Oh, okay, well, yes, I am only speaking for me, right? But the adults, part of our job as parents is to teach our children things. And of course, as the children grow older, they tell us that some of the things we're teaching them is kind of old hat and outdated and so on. When you're managing a program like this, there is a balance to be reached between teaching our impressions that come out of the past and equipping girls for the future. Lidia, how do you see this balance?
So it's so interesting. To Marina's point about learning from girls. So I have a girl who her Gold Award project, which is our highest earned award in Girl Scouting, was to do a podcast about immigrants and refugees and telling their stories, because she feels that there's so much misunderstanding. And so she really wanted to do this. And so as an immigrant myself, she interviewed me for this podcast. And I tell a story that my whole life I thought was a funny story. My parents are from Cuba. And my father, when he would speak sometimes, especially, we were in the deep South in Mississippi and in Tennessee, they would hear his accent and people would be like, "Ooh, I don't know if I can understand." And he would always say, "Have you heard of Ricky Ricardo? I am," and that's how he would sort of, make people feel comfortable with him. And so I'm telling you, Lena, the story, and this Girl Scout says to me, "Lidia, that's such a sad story. This is what happens to immigrants. They're always, it's like she's Korean American, it's like my community, we're always changing our names to Julie and Kimmy and things that people can pronounce because we're afraid to be who we really are. And your father was doing that. He was trying to get acceptance by making self-deprecating humor. How sad." And I had never, and this is what is so amazing about learning from young people, I had never thought of that story in that way. That in fact, she is teaching me about resilience, and stories that we tell ourselves about our own growing up are now interpreted in a different, we're living in a different world where some of those things that they are experiencing and that they're living through have an impact in a way that I learned from her that day that, some of the ways that I interpret things are not the same way that she's living them.
Well, you also get a new appreciation of the heroism of your father finding a way to navigate those times, right? I mean, that's the aha moment, right? The truths sort of coexist. Meredith, how do you see this whole idea of sort of what that Lidia points out, kind of the bidirectional education that we give as we try to also give education?
Yeah, thank you for that. This is great. And Lidia, thank you so much for sharing that. That's it is so powerful. And I think one of our best mission moments are when every day we get to learn from the girls, realizing that the mentoring path, it's a two-way street. And we are at such an amazing moment in time where we have the largest amount of generational spans. And as an organization as old as ours, we see and we have touch points with every single one of those generations because the organization is so has been so long standing. But we also have this generation that is like no other, and labeled the social justice generation, where we have to learn from them of what they want their future to be like. And I think that listening to their needs, but also teaching them and going back to the history of our organization and pointing out and making sure that the systemic issues that have been part of our culture for years are pointed out, are discussed, and are given that, have them find the solutions for those systemic issues so we can move forward in the way that is needed for the girls.
By the way, we just finished a poll in which we asked respondents whether an all-girls environment empowers or disempowers. 100% responded empowers. We don't get 100% that often. So that was a very interesting response. There have been some challenges in the scouting movement when it comes to safety. How do you ensure that your environments are built to assure the safety of your girls and ensure that they not only have fun, but their parents who drop them off can just go home and feel completely relaxed about that experience? Marina, you care to take that whole approach of physical safety and safe space?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, physical safety, I think, and emotional safety, I think it really starts with culture, and a culture of safety and a culture of accountability. And if you see something or feel something that doesn't feel right, you report it, and we do something about it, and we take action. And that's the starting point. That is our culture. We do the right thing. And we've even used that, with COVID in our council. We're Girl Scouts. We do the right thing. We do the right thing not only for ourselves, but for our community. We are not going to meet in person right now. We're not going to contribute to community spread. So that's been our mantra. That's our culture, and that's the kernel of that safety, is that culture of accountability. And then, of course, we have all the protocols in place for background screening of volunteers, all of the safety activity checkpoints, training requirements for physical activities, keeping girls safe. We have a really strong safety record in Girl Scouts. I'm proud to say, as a youth-serving nonprofit, we're able to get insurance to cover things like sex abuse, because it's so rare in our organization that we can get insurance. And then there's emotional safety, which is so important. And that's been an area we're doing really a lot of work, as particularly, I would say, in the area of gender identity. A lot of education required to really help our volunteers understand what it is to support a transgender girl. We're very clear in our council that if you can't learn, we understand everyone makes mistakes, but if you can't learn how to be anti-racist and how to be inclusive and how to welcome every girl into the organization, then this is not the right organization for you. So again, it goes to culture, but I would say empathy, with understanding that not everyone is as far along the journey, so they have to be open to education. And then when they disagree and it doesn't work, we're not going to be the right organization for everyone. So That's really how we work towards safety. And then again, listening to our girls. We just at our annual meeting had 9 older girls lead a 1-hour discussion with what they want our culture to be like, for them. Super powerful.
One of the things that Marina talks about that I have also started to talk about here is, and it's through some really hard work that her council has done around some of these issues, is that, and the way that I present it might not be exactly the way you present it, Marina, but that, we are through welcoming, people to the organization. We need to work harder to make sure that people feel a sense of belonging. There's a big difference.
Big difference.
Being welcoming and having a sense of belonging. I think as an organization and as a movement, we need to move to that place where every girl, no matter her background, no matter what, where she came from, that she needs to feel like the Girl Scouts is where she belongs. And I think that's incredibly powerful, Marina. And I know that you've worked hard to do some of that. And we're all taking your lead and using it in our own councils.
So we're launching a poll, and by the way, we would welcome questions from those who are attending via Zoom. I know that those attending via some of the social media feeds can't do it, but please ask any question you'd like. We'll try to route them. And to our guests, we just launched a poll. What does it mean to be like a girl? So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. I'd like to pick up this topic of belonging that Lidia brought forth. One of the things that we've seen in American institutions is that they grew up along vectors of defined by race and wealth, and we're in a real discussion today about how do you redefine those institutions, retaining the things that are valuable and positive about them, but redefining them to be anti-racist and to actually be organizations that can be owned by everybody and affected by everybody. Meridith, how do you approach this in the greater New York area, where you have this incredible history, this incredible legacy, and you have an embedded culture, and you are trying every day to shift that culture? How do you do that in ways that are both obvious and conscious, and ways that just create an unconscious culture that allows for the belonging that Lidia described?
Thank you. I think that the approach with redefining comes from intentional deconstructing.
Intentional deconstructing.
Yeah. We're at a point where the accountability of every business, every nonprofit, every individual lives in a public space, and you have to walk the walk. You have to walk the talk. You have to actually have action steps. There is no just lip service statements. And I think that's an incredibly exciting place to be as a society and as a culture, to really hold each other accountable for what we're doing and what we're saying. And I think one of the most important laws that we have in Girl Scouts is responsible for what I say and do. And that to me really encompasses, if we're gonna say this, we are going to do it, and we're going to take action on it. We teach our girls about taking action. That's always the final project of their work, is about taking action and having it be meaningful. So I think what it really means to me, like I said, is that intentional deconstructing of making sure, first of all, that we are representative of the communities we serve. We need to have every voice at the table in the decision-making process. That's within the staff, within the volunteers, within our board of directors, and we have to model what and who our girls are, and then not positioning ourselves to be the ones who are in the know. We look at this last year; no one was in the know of what it is to be in a pandemic, social justice crisis, and a recession. None of us have been there before. There are no experts in this. And as we go into that uncharted territory, understanding that bringing in the more diversity that you can bring in, and that sense of belonging needs to come from where they're seeing it in the action items. You feel like you belong when you can relate to what you see in individuals and what you see in the organization.
Where does intentional deconstruction start?
It's a hard, challenging process, and I know that we're all going through this. It starts with really looking internally, historically, everything from our vernacular, all of the things that we are saying, the messages that we're putting out there, the embrace and the integration into communities and families and caregivers. Is it relevant? Does it speak to them? Is it integrated into daily life that it becomes habitual and part of routine? And again, I think words are so powerful, and every message that we put out there has to have a focus of inclusivity and belonging.
It's one of the things that we asked when we asked this question. We just completed this poll. We said, what does it mean to do things like a girl? To cite some of the old cliches, what does it mean to throw like a girl, to hit like a girl? And we had 3 different types of answers. Like a girl means worse or without skill. 31% responded in that way. Very traditional, male-dominated definition. 13% said like a girl means better or skillfully, and like a girl means just differently, but just as skillfully. 56% responded in that way. Are you redefining through this intentional deconstruction, as Meridith puts it, or as you put it about a sense of belonging, Lidia, are you redefining how society views people and taking the input of girls in creating that redefinition for a new generation?
I think we absolutely are having those conversations. I think that we also need to take the lead from girls. I think that they are the ones who can help us, partly because, as you said, and I disagreed, that we are older. But as we are older, some of the societal constructs that we grew up in, we all have unconscious bias. We all, are trying to learn new ways of thinking. But I think that, they call this Generation C for Generation COVID. Like, there is a whole different way of understanding. And I think that adults, and I would say in the Girl Scout movement, our leadership is trying to be humble listeners, because I think that that's one of the first steps to this, is to really listen, because we think as adults that we know what is best for our girls, but actually we need to take a beat and create that brave space to just listen. And that is incredibly powerful, and it's hard to do, because as a mom, we all want, and I know all the parents who are listening, we all know exactly what our children should be doing, especially in their 20s.
Until they tell us that we're totally wrong, right?
So we need to just take a beat and listen. And I think that's where it starts.
So, it's so very interesting when we take a look at the changes. There's no area where the change is more evident than the Girl Scout cookie program, right? Because it starts off in a very traditionalist sense, and it's viewed in a particular way. But the cookie program of today and how it actually unfolds is a lot different than it did 25 years ago and 50 years ago and 75 years ago. Marina, could you talk a little bit about that program and start to look at it, make it accessible to us as an educational tool, as an empowering tool, as a business tool, as an entrepreneurial tool, how it has actually evolved today and how it continues to evolve?
Yeah. Well, think about it. We ran a cookie program in the middle of a pandemic this year, and our girls and our volunteers and our staff and our bakers all worked together to figure out how are we going to do contactless cookie program. And it was pretty remarkable. So the girls were learning about e-commerce. And I'll give you a little story that I think is an example of the changes. These were a group of girls who are in continuation high school. So they're in our Girl Scout program. They, for various reasons of being involved in the juvenile justice system, are not in their regular high schools. They're in a Girl Scout program in their continuation high school. They did a cookie program this year, but as part of the curriculum preparing, they didn't just sell cookies. They learned about what it is to run a business. They came up with a business plan. How are they going to do it? What's their goal? How to present, how to do their pitch. One of our board members, who is a marketing person for a private equity firm, organized a group of women who then the girls presented to. The girls had spent about 4 weeks in their Girl Scout program, planning their pitches, the reason for buying, and supporting their programs, making the case for it. And then a group of women mentors got on with the girls to mentor them, to have them present their pitches, to help them hone. The women were so excited because the girls were so well prepared. They said it was much better than most of the presentations that they ever see. Super empowering for the girls, because they had this opportunity to present in a business case on Zoom, their business plan for their cookies. And then, of course, the mentors also bought lots of cookies from the girls. That's really an example of, it's more than just the sale. It's the whole program that sits behind it. It's opportunity. Now these girls have funds in their troop, and now also part of COVID resilience is planning for the future. They're planning for a trip and something that they're going to do. They're going to go do a ropes course, which is awesome. So then that's going to get them outside. So yeah, that's just an example of the cookie program. I think there's a lot more to it than you see when you see the girl out at the booth, really developing her business skills, her confidence, her public speaking, her planning, and really building tomorrow's entrepreneurs. So We're really proud of the program.
Lidia, you want to say something?
Well, I just think, it's interesting to me, because I think what the cookie program for me, along with all the things that Marina has said, and I know Meridith, your girls are doing the same thing. I mean, I think that this resilience that, that at a young age, I remember one girl saying to me, I come from a background where my parents don't have resources to send me to do things, but I learned through the Girl Scout program that I could raise the funds to be able to do the things that I wanted to do. And I think, I think back at our founder, Juliet Gordon-Low, and I think that was sort of the thinking. It's like, how do you create, it's a very, for 1912, very forward thinking when you think about, the commercial cookie program started in 1923. And the whole concept was, no, we're not asking for a handout. We are going to create our own success, because we are women, we are girls, we know how to do this, and we're going to go after the things that are going to provide us the resources to be able to do what we really care about. And I think that is incredible. I mean, one of the things that has touched me, I also had my annual meeting on Saturday. One of the things that have touched me so much in our community, girls, a percentage of the sale of the cookies goes to the troop and to the girl for them to do their good works or whatever they want to do. So many of these girls, we had this program called Cookies for COVID, where they could take their proceeds and buy food for their local food pantries. And so many girls did that. I mean, to see a girl holding a bottle of Wesson oil like it's gold, because they raised the money to be able to buy, food for others. It shows you that spirit of helping others, but also the spirit of being the actors that make the decision in their own world of what it is that they want to do with it. And I think that is powerful for the rest of your life, to have had that opportunity to make those decisions. I know, Meridith, you have some great stories with your girls.
And that's, I love, the cookie program. When you flip the conversation, I love having the conversation with the consumer, because from the consumer ends, look, who doesn't love a box of cookies? It's a win-win. You have that exchange with a girl, and you get a great product, and you love it, and it's heartwarming, and it brings back memories, et cetera. And then I say, well, but look at that process. You're talking about purchasing something from a 5, 7, 10-year-old girl who makes a pitch, who has a plan of what she wants to do with her goals and with the funds she receives. She knows how to upsell. She knows what to say. If you don't want a box of cookies, she can talk you into donating a box of cookies. She talks to you about her product, her inventory control of how many Thin Mints she still has left in her living room. She knows how to reorder inventory. And now with a digital system, she knows how to manage social media. She knows how to check her open rate on emails and response and thank yous. And that's a business model that a young girl has. And that tool sets that win for when her first job interview, she's already made an ask. She's already done the work. She's already knows the process from A to Z. And I think that's the advantage that it positions girls, and when we're looking at an unemployment rate across the country now that has drastically affected women, we're looking at a gap in the workforce in the next 5 to 10 years. These girls are there ready to fill that gap. And they're already trained, they're already knowledgeable, they're collaborative workers, they have all the skills. And that's part of this job. That's part of this job, is just preparing them for that future, which right now is more necessary than ever.
And the poll is actually endorsing what you're saying. That we asked what the most important skills are that girls learn through the cookie program. We have money management, goal setting, decision making, people skills, business ethics. The whole idea here is that you take this program that started in 1923, and today it has as much impact in today's society. Yet we're also, as you say, we're doing more bidirectional communication. You have a pitch that is being made by girls who are fashioning themselves and preparing themselves as entrepreneurs. You have mentors who have already undertaken that journey, learning from the girls and enriching their own lives and contributing back. We're coming to the end of our time. Let's go around the table one more time. Let's start with you, Marina, and then we'll go to Meridith and then Lidia. Let's talk about the future of Girl Scouts. How do you see the organization evolving into the future, given our times today?
Yeah, I do think some of the most important work we're doing today is really intentional work to become a truly anti-racist organization, and really digging deep to understand what that means to have courageous conversations about race, and to really be the place where our nation is learning how to do that. We've been working with an organization called Policy Link on that. And when you think about, we're working with about 30,000 girls and 19,000 volunteers just in our council. If we can really work together in our council and then across the nation to really dig deep and understand how to be anti-racist, I think that's such important work. And I will say our girls and our volunteers are so open to and excited about the work that we're doing in that space. So that, I think, is it. And getting girls outside, mental health is a big issue, and the combination and empowering girls to be outside, those and take action in their communities. So social justice, mental health, mental wellness, but it really starts with making sure that everyone can see themselves as belonging in Girl Scouts, and we're doing the hard work required to get there.
You're really talking about creating advocates for American civil society, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but in a way that's not centered white, in a way that is like, who are we and who do we want to be and what will it take to get there, and really having those conversations in a civil way where we're respecting each other, hearing each other. We've formed with our volunteers what we call the Courage Cohort, and it is majority participants are people of color. To really create a safe space to have those conversations, to learn how do we bring this out. And then we're doing similar work with our girls, because we know that this really has to come from our members, this work. But I just think it's such important work for Girl Scouts. But I also think we've always been about nurturing citizens. And I think our perspective within Girl Scouts right now is that the work we're doing on racial justice and is really, really important work.
Meridith, what do you see the future of Girl Scouts as being?
Yeah, well, of course, I wholeheartedly agree with Marina, and she's doing just incredible work at her council with that. And when you think about the power of an organization, and of course, the accountability and responsibility that comes with that power, when she was saying, 30,000 girls, 19,000, like we all have this community within each of our councils. And when you think of the halo effect that can happen, right? When we go through those educational tools and those challenging conversations, and it doesn't just change one person, it changes that person's halo and circle around through their conversations. And that is so powerful as a movement as large and old as ours to be able to have. And I think that we are the right movement to be able to move that forward in a very, very productive, collaborative, and successful way. I also think as a nonprofit, when do we ever get the opportunity to stop and pause the way we had to last March, in March 13th, right? We move at the pace, we keep going. There's not a lot of reflective time in nonprofits because we're constantly problem solving. And for us, that opportunity to stop and redefine relevance in a heartbeat to make sure our community stayed connected, I think was the biggest gift we could ever have gotten. And to collect the data by moving to virtual platforms, collecting data, seeing where the sticky points are, using that knowledge that we now have to see what's post-COVID look like. How is it relevant? How did we reach more girls? What were they interested in? That's a gift that I don't think we get more than once in a lifetime. So I'm really excited about what that will tell us about the direction we need to go in.
Lidia, we'll give you the last word. Tell us about the future.
So I think, I absolutely agree with my two colleagues. I think that we are, as I think of this pandemic in the future, we are going to be in a COVID transformed world. It's not a post, it's not a back to normal. And I think that my big hope for our organization and our movement is that, just like what Meridith just said, that we're taking the opportunity to really prioritize what is important to our girls. And I think the whole stance around social justice is something that our girls really care about. And quite honestly, as a citizen of this world and citizen of this country, I think that Girl Scouts is positioned in a way like nothing else to be a catalyst for good and a catalyst for change. And I know that with my two sisters here on this panel today, that we're ready to take it on and to make the world a better place, which is what Girl Scouts are all about.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank you all, Meridith Maskara of the Girl Scouts of Greater New York, Lidia Soto-Harmon of the Girl Scouts of the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., and Marina Park, CEO of the Girl Scouts of Northern California. Thank you so much for helping to increase my knowledge of this amazing movement. And thank you, participants, guests, attendees, for participating in this. Have a great day. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you on Thursday. Take care.
Thank you.